Like, just kidding.
It's like nothing is really happening. Oh, we are live. Hello, everyone. Hi. Hello. Welcome. I was going to say to tonight, but it can be evening or afternoon or morning whenever you watch this. So welcome to today's webinar with Amparo Ortiz. That would be me. And my co-presenter, would you like to present yourself?
Nikki Barthelmess. Hello, everyone.
Yay, hello. We are the authors of BLAZEWRATH GAMES right here, although Nikki has it as well. Yay! And Nikki, you care to talk about your books?
Sure. Well, before we do that, I think we should welcome everybody. Thank you so much for coming to our webinar, Los Musas Books. Thank you for allowing us to do this. Amparo and I are so excited. We've been talking about this for, I don't know, a couple months, right?
Yeah, I feel like we have been wanting to do an event together, and this is our first event together. Like, this is our first time, like, seeing each other, like, meeting.
Live?
Live, yes.
Yeah, we just do all of our creeping on each other on social media. But both of our books came out in October. Well, so Amparo's debut novel, BLAZEWRATH GAMES, which we're so excited about, and she's going to tell us about it in a second. And then my sophomore novel, Quiet No More, just came out this month as well, which is the sequel to The Quiet You Carry. So I think before you have a whole spiel to talk to us, to open us up, but we are just really excited to be here to share our book journeys with you all. We have a list of things that we will discuss, but also we are open to live question and answers at some point, right, Amparo?
Yes, and if you could tell us where you're actually watching us from, that would be awesome as well, because I count myself as an international viewer because I'm in Puerto Rico. So I don't know if everyone else is in the States or outside of the States. So if you could leave us your locations in the chat or any questions you may have, as Nikki said, that would be awesome as well.
Yeah, tell us where you're coming from and also why you're here. Are you interested in writing young adult, middle grade? Are you just interested in what's it like? How does someone become a published author? Like, what brings you here? I know I have some family and friends, so my mother-in-law is here, I think.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so I got to do a good job, right? But I think aside from that, let's hear from you, where you're from, why you're here, and then we can get started. First, maybe we'll introduce our books, though. Amparo, do you want to go first?
Yes, I do see that Jandy is from Houston, so that's exciting. Mia says international winky face. And Madison is from Denver. That's amazing. Hello, everyone.
Where is the chat? I'm trying to, oh, here we go, chat. I got it. Yes.
Yes.
Oh, I got Madison Van Dyne from Denver, Colorado.
Yes. And Mia is from New York. Mia is from New York. She's from PR, from Puerto Rico, but she's in New York right now.
My mother-in-law says, yes, your mother-in-law is here. Hi, Carol.
Oh, hi, Carol.
From Santa Barbara. I didn't say where I'm from. I'm from Santa Barbara, California. So that's why some of you are coming to us at all times. Like Amparo said, 7 o'clock for her, and for me, it's 4 o'clock.
Yes, I see Louisville. I see a New Yorker currently in MD. Oh, nice. So this is, YA manuscript. Awesome. So I think we have a couple of writers here as well. This is going to be interesting because
Carolina's here. Hi, Carolina. Okay.
Oh, hola, hello.
We're gonna tell you all about Carolina and why we love her in a second. But before we get too caught up in all of the things we want to say, we should probably get started. Although I see in the chat, Madison is inspired to write a book. To go for it! Yay! Good. So happy to hear that Madison is a former reporter. She's been on TV, and I think we went to the same journalism school, and she worked on the documentary. So that's exciting. Storytelling is in her blood. But okay, all right. You and I are
we're like fangirling over everyone here.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay, so Amparo, can you tell us about BLAZEWRATH GAMES?
Yes. So this book, which Nikki is also showing off, is a YA contemporary fantasy. It just came out earlier this month, as Nikki mentioned, and that is about a Puerto Rican girl who wants to compete in what is known as the BLAZEWRATH World Cup. And the BLAZEWRATH World Cup is basically just the World Cup of Dragons, and she wants to represent Puerto Rico. It's their first time competing. She's super excited about this opportunity, but there is a terrorist that's been cursed into human form. He was originally a dragon, and now she is trying to navigate a possible global conspiracy that may or may not implicate her as well. So yeah.
And I have to say that I just started reading it, and it's really, really good. Really, really good. So everybody, that's why I'm showing it off. I'm so excited.
That's so sweet.
Okay, so I had to go first because since mine is a sequel, I feel like I kind of have to the first one. Sorry.
Yes.
So
no, don't be sorry.
I just want to double the airtime. Okay, so The Quiet You Carry right here is my debut novel that came out in March 2019. It follows 17-year-old Victoria Parker, who is removed from her home and put into a foster home in a small rural town that she's never heard of. And she is trying to hide the fact that she's in foster care from the kids at her small school because she's embarrassed, keep her college dreams alive because everything has kind of been ripped from her, all of her support, family, and everything, as well as hide the secret of what really happened from social services because they know something happened, and that's why they took her away, but they don't know exactly. All the while, she's also trying to protect the stepsister she left behind, who may be in danger. So that is The Quiet You Carry, and Quiet No More picks up the story. For anybody who follows me on social media knows that I have a corgi, and usually he is like upstairs with his father, my husband, in his office in his desk helping, and for whatever reason it's like he knows I'm down here doing stuff, so he's playing with this really loud toy, so I hope nobody can hear it because I have headphones in. But anyway, so if you see me like looking over there like, oh, she's talking about a better book, what is she doing? I'm looking at quarters.
Yeah, he's like, I'm here too.
Yeah, he's like, look at me. Okay, so Quiet No More is the sequel. It follows Victoria as she is a freshman in college. So spoiler alert, she doesn't get in college. Yay. But that's not that big of a spoiler. So she is an assault survivor who is trying to start her new beginnings, what she hopes is a new life for herself by kind of working on old relationships, starting new ones, trying to make new friends at this and do good in the world by joining this club that advocates for the rights and tries to prevent sexual assault and harassment. And everything is kind of thrown into disarray when her long lost aunt shows up, who is telling her that Victoria's abuser, this family member, actually had this past where a bunch of things happened to them and when they were a kid, and it just kind of throws everything that Victoria thought into question. And she's wondering what she should do because she has a victim impact statement that she has to write for the judge that can affect her abuser's sentencing. And so she doesn't know what she should do because she doesn't want to make her abuser suffer more than they already have in jail, but she also has her club members wanting her to kind of throw the book at them. So she has to kind of figure out who she's speaking up for and why in Quiet No More. She's got a lot of trouble up ahead.
Ooh, I love it. Also, you're very good at pitching your own books. I love that.
That is very not true, but thank you. It is so hard.
It's really hard.
It's okay. So everybody here, since Amparo and I this is going to be the day of tangents. We're doing this in the time of COVID-19, and Amparo, you debuted, your first novel comes out in this time. So it's very different than what it's been for us authors before, where we go and we, could speak at bookstores or have book signings and events and all these things in person. And now it's very different, where it's great because we get to have people from all over. Like we see people from Colorado on here. We see people from, other countries. We see people from everywhere. So it's making it much more accessible, which is really great. But it also means that we're like figuring out this whole new world of technology. And I guess we were always talking about our books. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's just get started. Let's just get into it. Don't listen to me anymore.
No, I love listening to Nikki. But yes, in terms of debuting, I feel like we should start with how these ideas came to us, because I'm sure that a lot of people who want to be published are probably struggling. I mean, NaNoWriMo, is coming up. So I feel like this whole, I love that mug, by the way. This casual. By the way, Latinx Kitlit Book Festival, December 4th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go to lasmusasbooks.com for more information, or to the actual festival website for more information, and full schedule is already available. So.
Okay. I'm the worst. Please continue.
No, but I love it. I love it. So where did the idea for this specific story come from? Did you always imagine it as a duology, or did you just imagine it as one contained story?
Okay, so how did I come up with the idea? How did we come up? We're going to talk about how we came up with the ideas to write our book. So this is a question that, as authors, I'm sure you hear this a lot, Amparo. So
yeah,
those of you who are thinking, I want to become I want to write a book before I even try to get published, try to get an agent. Where do I kind of get started? And so for me, with The Quiet You Carry, it is not based on me. It's not like my life story. Excuse me. It's not an autobiography, but I did grow up in foster care. I spent 6 years living in 6 different towns in the Nevada foster care system from 12 to 18 when I aged out. And so I have been in a lot of foster homes. I've met a lot of other foster kids, and I've seen, I didn't even know what foster care was before I was in foster care. I've seen it portrayed in a way that I wasn't a fan of in books and the media and movies. And I thought I could do better. I want to just have a story that showed some of the realities that these kids like myself go through, but also the resilience and the strength and also what's possible for them, other than just being this negative statistic that we so often are told that we will become. So that's kind of where my idea to write the book was. And then with Quiet No More, I kind of, again, bringing it back to me, I think that a lot of people see someone, anybody, all of us have been through stuff, right? But if you've been a victim of abuse or assault, you know, you're not just like, oh, before everything was bad, and then like you're healed after you like go
right.
It, right? And so I was thinking about that tendency of how people even sometimes see me as a former foster kid, like, okay, well, your life was bad before and now it's great. And I was just thinking like, okay, well, that's not true for anybody who's been through anything. Like, we're all kind of works in progress, and it can be very, feelings and trauma and all that stuff can be really messy. And especially if you've been hurt by someone that you love. So I just wanted to kind of explore that in a story. So that's where my ideas for these books came from. What about you and BLAZEWRATH Games? And so, okay, the actionable advice, because I'm always trying to make this relevant to people, is, you know, to think about a story that only you can write. So like my first book that didn't sell, and when I say it didn't sell, it means that my agent tried to sell it to publishers and no publishers bought it, was what I thought was a really cool dystopian novel that I like loved. I was like, oh, I'm gonna be the next Hunger Games.
Yeah.
Didn't happen.
We all think that. Yeah.
Right? I don't know. I think you could be though. Yes, read the book. But like, you know, it was cool and everything, but like there wasn't something of me that like this story that I don't know that the world really needed it, right? So I think that like when I'm telling other people, like when you want to write your story or share something from your heart, when it's art, whether that's anything, like what about you makes you you, what story do you have to tell? And that will make all the rejections, because there will be many, and we're going to talk about that, easier to push past, because you'll have a reason for doing what you're doing. And so that's my skills, to think about like, what makes you you, and what do you have to say to the world? And it doesn't have to be your life story. This is not my life story. No matter how many times I tell people that, they don't believe me. But I imagine like I'm going to write so many books and they're all going to have pieces of me. And then eventually people are going to believe like, okay, there's no way that she can have had 30 lives. So anyway, what about you, Amparo? Where did you get the idea for BLAZEWRATH Games?
I mean, it's very similar to you in the sense that the story that only I can tell is a story that is inherently Puerto Rican, in the sense that it features a character from my country, but unlike me, because I'm not diaspora, I still live in Puerto Rico, my character does live in Florida. So she's been raised most of her life in Florida, outside of what she considers home. And I wanted to play with that concept of home, but I also wanted to write about dragons. Like, I just felt this need to like take a trope that was so beloved and so copy-pasted throughout so many years by what is essentially the Eurocentric gaze. And we've seen dragons before, but never like in a way that felt familiar or relatable to me. Of course, yes, fun and exciting, but never close to home. And I wanted to reinvent it in a way, but not just the Puerto Rican concept of what a dragon would be, but also what it's like to explore power through cultural identity. And I just did not have a clear understanding of how I was going to do that at first. So this idea came to me by the end of 2013, and I discussed it with my critique partners, and they were like, this sounds great, you should explore it further. And I was like, I'm just too scared to even dream about this. Like, it sounds too ambitious, and I feel like I'm not the writer for it. And then in 2014, the FIFA World Cup happened, and I was watching it, and it was like everything started coming together. The sport came together. The main character struggled to fit in, both as a Puerto Rican on the team and also an athlete in general. Like, everything just came together, but it took a long time. And I started writing it formally in 2017. So it took a long time.
And that's the thing, I think that I'm so glad that you stuck with it, because now people watching this, you should know, like, if readers love this book, there are so many just cool, like, they made all sorts of different art people have made about this, all sorts of great, I'm not being articulate right now, but just fans have really responded to your book.
I'm never articulate, it's fine.
So, yeah. But I think that brings us to draft. And then so Amparo and I have kind of a list of things we want to go to, but like, we want to hear your questions too. So let us know that. But so drafting, I think that a lot of people are like, cool, well, you have this idea, but how do you go from like, this is my idea to I have even a first draft, right? Because that a lot of people don't even get that far, because it's hard.
Yeah.
We have lives. When I wrote my first manuscript, the YA dystopia, and I was in college, I had like an internship, a job, friends, boyfriend. Like, I just had all sorts of stuff going on, but you had to find ways to do this. So Amparo, how would you say, like, you were able to write this book, especially in our case, when we write a book before either of us have an agent, before either of us have like anybody, an editor, a publishing house? Like, how do you get from, I have this idea, to, okay, here's this book?
Well, yes, actually, speaking of agents, my agent Linda is here with us today.
Hey, Linda.
Yay, Linda. But I actually had representation. I signed with Linda in 2015.
Oh, okay. Don't listen to me, but tell us about this. Tell us the story.
Yes, I signed at the end of 2015 with Linda, and then it was all of 2016 me trying to write a different book and failing at it. And Linda was like, she emailed me and she said, oh, I've been thinking about this dragon fantasy that you pitched to me, and like, what's up with that? Are you ever going to write that? And I was like, oh, maybe I should, but like, I'm scared that I'm going to mess it up because I'm not good enough yet. And she was just like, but just try it, just try it. And I started trying it. Yes, I started it. So what I did was, in January of 2017, I started writing what would essentially be the first draft of BLAZEWRATH Games. And what I did was send each month a packet of like 50 pages, 20 pages to my agent, just to keep myself accountable. I told her not to read anything, but I was like, just see it in your inbox.
Right, Linda, in the chat, did you read it or no?
Oh, please tell me you did not. It was more just like accountability and like proof that I was working on it. So I kept doing that, and then I kind of like, by the summer of 2017, I kind of lost steam, and I was going really slow because of my day job and such. I'm a college professor, and then we were hit. No big deal. And then we were hit with 2 hurricanes in September in Puerto Rico, and we lost power. The entire country lost power, but I lost power for like a month and 2 weeks. And by the time everything was restored in my neighborhood, because not the whole country was still struggling by that point. By the time that I got power back, I just wasn't motivated because I felt so stressed. Like, how are we going to live in this new reality? Like, when am I going to like be able to go back to work and such? So I wasn't really thinking about writing. And then like close to November, like the end of November, that's when I like said, no, I have to finish this. I'm going to finish it for myself. And I did. I stopped, like, I ended the draft, I believe the very last day of December was the very last day that I wrote that first draft. So it was a whole year.
So, okay, let's just all bow down to Amparo, because the rest of us are like, oh, how do I write a book? I got so much else to do. And she's like, just don't have power or water. I'm just going to figure it out. So,
figure it out. It was more like a badge of honor for me. I was like, oh, I can
actually. You did it. You persevered. And I'm so glad you did, but also it shows how much it mattered to you, how determined you were. But what I want to do is take you back a little bit, because to kind of pull back the veil for those of our watchers who are viewers, people who are with guests. and by the way, this is being recorded, so we're going to post this later for those who miss it. So sadly, my agent is not here because she is busy, but she's going to watch it later. Hey, Sarah.
Perfect. Very good.
But let's pull the veil back a little bit and talk about how you got an agent, if you don't mind, if you'll humor me, how you got an agent before you had this book, or this, like, what was the process like that for you?
Yes. So actually I queried, I'm going to share, let me check if I can share it. So let me see. Oh, here we go. Yes. This, I don't know if you can see it already, but this is actually, okay, perfect. So this is actually part of my blog that is now defunct, and it's actually part of my website now. So this is my post, or how I got my agent post, with a timeline and query stats. So I actually started querying for a completely different project in 2015. And it was April that I first sent a query, and I sent a total of 12, which, by the way, is not a lot. So for me, it was a lot, but it's, in general, I know people who have queried hundreds of agents, and maybe you should do that. But also, if you're getting rejections, revise accordingly. If you respond well to this. Yes, exactly. If you respond well to those revision notes. So I sent 12 queries, and I only got 4 full requests, meaning the entire manuscript was requested. And all of those requests ended up being rejections, and 2 of them had feedback attached to them. So 2 literary agents gave me some very good advice on how to revise. And so I stopped querying agents to revise in July. And so one of them was actually Linda. And she was the one who told me, this is a good idea, but like, I still don't love it enough to actually represent you, which she was completely, like, it was warranted for her to say that, because it was really terrible. And lo and behold, I stopped querying, I started revising. And then like months later, she randomly emails me to ask me how revisions are going. And I'm like, oh, they're going great. And then
you have not been working on it, have you?
No. And she's like, oh, great. So can we like chat sometime? And I'm like, sure. So we chatted. No, actually, she contacted me in October, then in November again to like know more about my revision process. And then in December, we had a chat, and we talked for about an hour and a half. And she offered me representation because she was just checking to see if I was mentally stable, in the sense that I wasn't like someone who was going to completely upend her life as a client, and or like harm her in any way, which is terrible, but it happens. People are.
And what Amparo was talking about, here, let me not say what I think you're trying. What I think some people, the agents have the phone call with you to make sure that you mesh well, right? Because how many agents, I think, sometimes get like hundreds of
oh my God
of queries, which are a query is a pitch of your book. So like you follow the agency's website guidelines, so when you're looking up agents, you look to their websites, and it'll say, like, my agency is Curtis Brown, for example, and it'll say like, oh, okay, well, put in like your pitch, which is like a synopsis or whatever they say, and then like the first 10 pages if they ask for it, or whatever their instructions are. But then they get probably hundreds of those queries a week on top of their regular clients that they're dealing with. Yeah. And then so just imagine anybody can send an email, right? So in this day and age, so they just if they like your stuff, which obviously Linda did, they want to get you on the phone and make sure that like you're not, that you two could work together. Like Amparo said, they don't want to work with some weirdo, right? So that's, let me not say what she means is like a total jerk. What?
Just
that's what I thought.
Going to complicate their like mental health and like their inner peace. You
want to make sure it's a good fit, because it's like a partnership. It's almost like a marriage in some ways. Like, they're working with you because I think a lot of people think like when they want to get an agent, it's like they're kind of begging for an agent, right? Like, please represent me, because it's gatekeeper can get you to the editors, right? But like it's a business partnership, right? They are only going to work with you if they think your work is good enough to sell, because they are there to make money. But also they're going to read your work so many times, right? So it has to be a
gosh.
book they love. Like, think about how many books that you like, but you're going to read it once, right? But then there's one book that you might evangelize to everybody you know, right? You're going to say, this is the best book I've ever read. Oh my gosh. They have to love every client's book that much, because otherwise they won't be ready to like revise it with you and then pitch it to editors. And then when you have an editor, an agent is pitching to the editors, which we'll talk about too, that editor has to love it also, because they're going to be working with you a lot and they want to make sure you have the same vision. So that's kind of a big part of it. Is it's not, a lot of us think like, oh, they don't like me because I'm not good enough. Like, you know, yeah, sometimes that can be the case. Sometimes we're not ready yet. Like, we're not there yet, but you also have to have, like, it has to be a good partnership, a good fit. So, so you really want to, when you're querying, when you're looking for an agent, you want to look for somebody who you're going to be a good working partnership with, somebody who represents the kind of work that you do. That's when you do your research. And then somebody who is a good fit for you personally, right?
Yeah, and Mia says that an agent, I'm going to mispronounce her name, I'm sure, but it's Jen Rofe or Rove?
I think it's, okay, anyway, sorry.
I think it's Rofe, but yeah, because I've seen the little, So it said, once said that it's like getting married without dating. Like when you kind of find your match, or literary agent has a match. Yes. That's exactly it.
Totally.
Pretty much.
So don't be scared of agents. Agents are people too. They want you to succeed, because they don't succeed unless you succeed. And I'll just really quickly go over how I got an agent, because it's kind of a unique story. I don't have all my stats like Amparo has. It took me a couple years, maybe 2 or 3 years to get an agent. And I don't know how many queries I sent out, because I think I probably blocked it from my mind. It was like, no, let's not, the dark days. Yeah. But
I don't know what you're talking about.
I had gotten some partial requests, which is they were asking, oh, hey, I like your manuscript, let me send like 50 pages or whatever, and then rejections. And then I had gotten some full requests, which is, I love it, you know, let me see the rest of it, but nothing had happened. And then I actually I ended up getting a mentor, and I think this is Amparo and I talked about being a part of the writing community and how important it is, not just because somebody could help you, but also because like it can be really lonely out there, and it's hard when, you know, we all have all these like feelings about our work, and we creatives, but people in the real world don't necessarily understand it. So, you know, when you're talking about like, oh, I got a full request from an agent, this is the best day of my life, and we're like, oh, cool. So when does your book come out? You're like, no, that's
not how it works.
But so long story short, I was introduced by a friend to someone who became my mentor, the really fantastic, wonderful, talented Nikki Grimes, celebrated. Yeah, she's a YA middle grade writer, picture book writer. She's just like the best human ever. I love her, and she really was helping me. Best human ever. Best human ever. Just put that somewhere.
I said Cuban. I understood Cuban. Like the best Cuban
no,
ever.
She is. Nikki is the best human ever. She is not Cuban. Human. And I did not realize this at the time, how rare it was, but she referred me to her agent, because
that's amazing.
She liked my work, and she thought that her agent would also like my work. And I ended up being represented by that agent, who's fantastic, Curtis Brown. And we worked her name is Elizabeth, and we worked together for that first book, and worked great together. Fantastic agent, just love her. And then that book didn't sell, and I was working on what now is my debut, The Quiet You Carry, and her assistant. I'm telling you, I'm telling the story for a reason, because I think it's good to share with people who are not in publishing but are interested in getting into publishing, so they can see like how all this stuff can sometimes work.
It's wild.
Her assistant wanted to be an agent someday. They call publishing like the last apprenticeship or whatever. So like a lot of editors editors are going to start off as editorial assistants. Agents are going to start off as assistants, right? Always be nice to the assistants. One, because they're human beings. Let's be good people. But like
first and foremost.
This is first and foremost. Yes. Just don't be a jerk. Let's just put that out there.
General rule, please.
So the assistants today are the vice presidents tomorrow. Okay. So let's just let that be known. Let that be known. So anyway, Sarah and I were working together, and the assistant Sarah, and her feedback really resonated with me, and we just kind of worked with each other more and more. And I ended up, and this is kind of answering the question about traveling into book submission, because I have stats for book submission, but not for agents. I had been on submission for a really long time with The Quiet You Carry, and we kept pulling it back to revise, like you were saying, with feedback from editors, right? Like, this is really great, and it just wasn't the story that it needed to be yet. It's not that I was like, it's not that it was this terrible story. It was just, it wasn't the story that I needed. It needed work, right? That's okay. That's what we do. We're writers. And so during all this time, I was revising a lot. So it ended up being that working with Sarah so much, she was at that point ready to become an agent. And she had asked me, and we had all kind of talked, and like, what if she kind of took me on and they shared me as a client, and they both worked on me, like as Sarah officially, because she was doing a lot of that work, because assistants will do a lot of the work behind the scenes. And so I was like, oh yeah, great. 2 people helping me. That's awesome. And I knew Sarah, and she was great. And the book ended up selling, it didn't sell to a publisher for 2 years and 3 months. And that was after my first book was on submission for more than a year. So that was more than 3 years that I had already had an agent representing me, but had no. So that's why it's funny when someone's like, oh, you got a full request. When's your book come out? It's like, no, never.
Honey, no.
But, so anyway, and just through that experience, I ended up working with Sarah more and more, and us really like getting along so well that I ended up transitioning into Sarah being my agent, which was really cool. And I tell that story because I think it's something that people don't necessarily know, that kind of stuff happens in publishing.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. And also to just let you know that, like, wow, okay, you think it's hard getting rejected by agents. It happens with publishers too. And it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with your book. It just means that it's not necessarily the right fit for that publisher. We hadn't found the right fit yet. And then we found the perfect fit in Flux. We had seen some books that Eric Smith had done with them, actually, that had like the adoption anthology, another adopted main character. They dealt with a lot of issues in books that had heavy hitting topics, because my books are pretty, they're serious books, and that's not right for every reader, every publisher, which is fine. But so we found that right publisher, you find that right editor, you find that right agent. And so that's kind of like a theme of this discussion, right? So anyway, I say all of this because you could be on submission, you could be trying to get an agent for a really, really long time. And my point behind that really, really long story, so tomorrow to start talking again, is that I think that to get you to be able to not only have the perseverance to have an idea and to see it through even a first draft, but then through many, many revisions before you even get an agent, many, many revisions before you even get a request, many, many revisions before you even get an editor, many, many revisions once you get an editor. And we want to talk about one of our editors, Amparo and I, in a minute. Is that you have to, I think, really love the story, because all of those no's, it's how do you keep going, right? So why are you doing this? Why? You have to say to the world, to readers, that matters enough to you that you think it can matter to somebody else. I think you need to find that why, and find that I care and this means something to me, to have that perseverance. And then after that, it's just, finding what works for you, whether that is like a goal count of, I'm going to write 3,000 words a week. That could be 100 today and none for 5 days, and then 2,900. Or that could be, I'm going to write for 15 minutes every day. That could be like, I'm not going to eat that candy bar until I do this. Or that's negative reinforcement. Maybe the positive will be like, I will get to go, I don't know, pre-COVID, the spa or whatever, like you just have to find what works for you. But the thing is we all do hard stuff all the time. We just have to make it a priority. If you go to the gym regularly, you find a way to make that work, right? You wake up with your alarm because you have to go to work. You find the way to make that work. So basically my advice is find the reason to care that will keep you going. And then also find what works for you realistically in terms of discipline.
Absolutely.
So tired.
Everything you said is actually accurate. Yes. Because in my case, I signed, like I mentioned, with Linda in 2015, but I did not hit shelves, or not me personally, but like my work did not hit shelves until 2018, because even though BLAZEWRATH Games is my first novel, I have a short story comic that is in an anthology. And that anthology was published in 2018, March of 2018, after a couple of months after the last hurricane of 2017, which was Maria, which was the one that was devastating to all of Puerto Rico.
Man, you've had a rough time. I'm just so sorry. It has been rough for you.
But yeah, but it's like, I was still like writing BLAZEWRATH. It was just titled BLAZEWRATH then, but at BLAZEWRATH Games. I was still writing it, but like close to December, Linda got a request to like, if she knew any authors that were interested in participating in the anthology. Lion Forge is the publisher of that specific anthology, and they were like looking for Latinx creators, but specifically Puerto Rican creators. And I was like, yes. I had written a full horror graphic novel, a YA horror, and we shelved it. Linda and I shelved it, but because I took that plunge and started writing something in a format that I was unfamiliar with as a writer, but as a reader, I was quite familiar with it. That led to that opportunity, because that's why Linda was like, oh, I know you write, or you wrote a comic, like, would you like to try out for this? And like literally in an hour, I had the full concept, like an outline for the short story.
Wow.
And they were like, we love this. You have a weekend to write it. And I'm like, perfect. And then cut to 2018, not my book, but like the anthology is on shelves, and I'm still writing BLAZEWRATH. I'm revising it. And that's like, that whole year was me revising it with my critique partners and with some beta readers. And then we can like, I think we can segue into like beta reading and how we like worked our way through that. Because actually one of my beta readers also was a beta reader for Nikki. Yay!
And I don't think she's on here, so let's just call her out. Autumn Krause, where are you? And why are you not watching this? How dare you be writing your own books and taking care of your 2 children instead of watching us write?
How dare, indeed.
How dare you? So Autumn Krause is wonderful, also wonderful.
Yes, we should also plug her book, yes.
But yeah, Dress for the Wicked, 2019. It's like Devil Meets Prada. Wait, Devil Wears Prada.
The Devil Wears Prada.
I was thinking meets Hunger Games or like Project Runway or something. I don't know. So
that's exactly it.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I didn't make that up. I saw that like on Goodreads or something. But Autumn is a good friend of mine, and I just recently learned, because I was telling Autumn, I knew that we knew each other. Like I've seen you 2 talk on Facebook or on social media. Oh yes. And so I knew that you knew her. And so I used to live in LA, and so we'd see each other a lot more. Well, obviously pre-COVID, because she lives in Orange County. So Santa Barbara's a little bit farther away. So we used to hang out all the time, but now I haven't seen her in a while because of COVID. But she's a dear, dear friend. I love her so much. And we've been friends for years. And we were both each other's critique partners before either of us were published. Her book came out in 2019 from Harper Teen. And so she had read The Quiet You Carry, and actually she's the one who came up with the title of it. It used to be titled Unwanted, but then when I changed it all those times, we decided to kind of like demarcate it, and I wanted a different title. And back in the day, I'd asked her for like some so this is how CPs and beta readers can help you, is I was like, you've read my book and given comments and feedback. Yeah. What I need like some comp titles, which means comparable titles, and that's like my agent and I were thinking of like different new ways to pitch it as we had changed. I had changed it so much, we had changed it so much. And so Autumn, I'm going to make fun of her here because we tell this story at events. We've done a bunch of events together. We debuted last year. Autumn sent me like all these lists of books, and I hadn't heard of any of them. And I just thought, oh, she's like so much better bred than I am. She went to like VCFA, Vermont College of Fine Arts.
Yes, she did. Yes.
Like I just was like, oh, I'm like a bumpkin. I don't know what so I didn't even look them up. I just sent them to Sarah, my agent. And Sarah responds, she's like, oh, cool. Can you ask her for like the authors' names? Because I just looked these all up on Goodreads and I didn't find any. And I text Autumn, like, and I asked her, and she's like, oh, I thought you meant other title ideas. And I was like, no, I said comp titles. Wow. And it was really funny because she didn't know what it meant or whatever, which I like to tease her. But then months and months later, when I decided we wanted to retitle the book, I went and looked at her list. I'm like, Quiet You Carry is really beautiful. You sure you're okay with me using that? And she said, yeah. But like how we work with beta readers. So, and then I want to hear how you know Autumn too. But so critique partners is I found Autumn through mutual friends, somebody who, and this is back to community and why it's so important. And you don't need to know a bunch of published authors. Like you go on Twitter, you go on Instagram, you go on Facebook, you go wherever, you join groups like SCBWI, the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. You do NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month. A bunch of the stuff is free, right? Like this webinar is free. You see people in the chat and you're like, hey, anyone want a critique partner? Here's my handle. Yeah. Send me a message. Find these people wherever you're at, exchange notes, or exchange like, here, this is what I'm writing, this is what you're writing. And then like, if you're a good fit or if you want to give it a shot, read each other's stuff and then give comments. You can't be precious with your work because you will not get better if other people don't read it. I'm sorry. I hate to break it to you. You need other opinions, in my opinion. And Absolutely. And you don't need to change your whole book and throw it out. If somebody tells you specifically what is absolutely horrible about your book and here is exactly how you need to fix it, then they're probably wrong. But if they tell you something like, this part is confusing for me, or this part doesn't really work for me because, then you know that that's a problem for them and it's up to you to find out how to solve it, right? But then especially you should maybe have multiple people reading your book or your chapters or a chapter or whatever. And then if multiple people say the same thing, then you really know, okay, I might not fix it exactly how so-and-so said so, but like I know that if it confuses 3 people, it's probably going to confuse a heck of a lot more people. And we imagine it perfectly onto the page, but we're the one who came up with this idea. You're the one who comes up with your story idea. You need to be able to have those fresh eyes, and we cannot do that ourselves. So I really recommend getting online, doing these things, getting on Twitter, Instagram, wherever, telling people and that's how I got a mentor too. Like I was afraid to tell anybody, hey, I'm writing this book because I thought people would laugh at me and say that will never happen for you. But as soon as I started to be brave and I started to tell people that I was writing, I actually had a few authors offer to read my book, which I didn't realize how rare at the time that was. I just thought, oh, everybody's so nice. And then a couple people actually sent my work on to their agents. And I'm not saying that everybody should go and do that for the sake of that everyone's going to get them an agent, because most people, the agent said no to me. They still need to connect with your work. And you should never ask somebody to do that either, because we're all so busy. I never asked anybody to do that. It was like we had meaningful relationships aside from that. And they saw that I was they thought one of the best compliments I've ever gotten in my life is that I'm teachable, and they saw something in me and they wanted to help. And so and then bring people back up too. Like Amparo, I'm sure you do this. I know Las Musas does this. We offer mentorship,
Yes. I'm a mentor right now.
There you go. See? So once you make it, then bring people back up wherever you are, offer to help people, whether you're in the same level as them, critique partner. Or when you get, so if I offer to read somebody's work, it's because someone did that for me. And like I said, I don't think it's polite to ask people or assume people are just going to hook you up, because it's such a our agents get 400 queries a week. They don't have time to send everybody. I can't do that because then my word will be meaningless. If I recommend anybody, it's because I think their work specifically is not only good enough, but that my agent would like it. And that means I know her specific taste because I'm putting my name on the line. And it's not even that you wouldn't do that for your best friend. It's like, well, maybe my best friend doesn't have the work that meets that criteria, and that's okay. But what I'm saying is, if you don't put yourself open and out there, no one is going to be able to help you, and you won't be able to help anybody, whether that's a reader, which is someone who just reads and, might give an opinion without craft advice, or critique partner, whether that's a mentor, an author friend. Amparo and I wouldn't have met if we hadn't, both of us jumped on to Las Musas, if both of us hadn't said hello to each other on social media. It's scary out there, but we need community. This is how you grow. This is how you get better. This is how you make friends. And that's really important.
Absolutely. And by the way, Yesenia said something that I completely agree with. I heard recently that we need to be kinder to one another. And I mean, just as a basic general rule, yes, but mostly publishing is all about connection, in the sense, not oh, if you know this person, you're going to get this, but connection in the sense that we're in a very vulnerable industry for us, because we're creatives and we're going to get critiqued, we're going to get rejected. Why not be kind to someone who may or may not be open about their struggles, whether they're creative struggles or personal struggles? You don't know. So it's as creatives, we're not super supported anyway. So within our industry, it's very important to also have that caution and also that kindness reflected in everything we do, whether we get something out of it or not. That's irrelevant.
And have discernment too. I'm not telling you to throw your work at anybody. Certainly make sure that you have it, make sure that it's someone,
bring my book.
Yeah, like even when Autumn and I were introduced from a mutual friend who knew us both from went to college with her and then worked at a newspaper with me. That's how we knew.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, but it wasn't like the next day we sent each other our pages either. We got to know each other first. So like just don't ever. I think this is. We should never go out like, what can someone do for me or what even can I do for them? But just like, you know, be a nice human and make some friends and learn a bunch and take some feedback. Don't be so precious about yourself or your work. We're all sensitive. It's hard. And just, you know, we're all just doing our best and trying to do our best. And that's what you all are doing. Otherwise you wouldn't be here. So congratulations.
Absolutely.
Back. So I want to talk about, can we talk about, we kind of have gone over with feedback with literary agents. So I think we should talk about working with publishers, which people might not know. Amparo and I actually for our, at least for my third book, I don't know what number book you are on with.
Technically, it would be my fourth, because for BLAZEWRATH Games, it's a duology. So I will have the sequel comes out next year, and my graphic novel comes out in 2022. So it would be my fourth book.
So yay! So
what is that? I'm not sure. It's not the dance. Anyway,
I know. Well, I keep saying like making weird faces and like doing weird dance.
Normal.
So just whatever. So Amparo and I, speaking of it being a small world, we both share an editor for our future projects. So we work with Carolina Ortiz with Colin, so who I believe is watching. Hey, she's the best. So I thought that I wanted to mention that. That's really cool. I think that we get to can gush to each other about how fantastic Carolina is, and then also when we're like, oh yeah, hey, what do you? Let's prepare for this webinar. Oh no, I just got my notes from Carolina. Oh, I just sent mine in. Like,
yeah, we were comparing notes because I got this fun fact. I got my copy edits for the middle grade graphic novel project with Carolina the same day that I got my editorial letter for book 2, the sequel to BLAZEWRATH Games, and I was just like, oh my god. But at the same time, I was super excited because I love the whole process of graphic novel making. I'm not an illustrator. I can't draw. I barely make stick figures look like stick figures. So I'm just super excited to see that whole project come to life. And Carolina is just as excited as I am, obviously, because, you know, this is something that she helped create. But at the same time, it's just like, it's so refreshing to see editors who are like excited about your work in a very like fangirly way, like really overt. It's not just like, oh yes, this is exciting because we're working on it. And no, it's exciting because I love this project so much. And that's what you need in an editor. And I feel like Nikki would agree with me. Editors will sometimes latch on to projects that they respond to them or that they love. But it's very rare to just mesh that well with an editor beyond just sharing a love for a specific project. It's just like personalities, like chemistry, everything needs to be. I mean, you can work with editors you don't have chemistry with as a person, but fangirling all the time, Amparo and Nikki. Yes, Carolina.
I think I'm not seeing the same chat that you're seeing because I don't have any new stuff since you said hi to everyone. Anyway, don't worry about that. You respond to the chat. But yeah, so I think that's why a lot of writers will be like, oh, you know, kind of frustrated that their book hasn't found its right home yet. And it's because this book, whatever your project needs to find with the right person that has the right vision and can mesh with you, like Amparo said, even though not everybody is, you know, of course, there's going to be varying degrees of that. But like, you want somebody who's going to be totally in your corner and who's going to fight for you, yes, but you also want someone who has their own vision that can elevate your words, elevate your story, because that's why they do what they do. That's why they're editors. They have the ability, they have the talent, the skills to help you shape that story with revision suggestions and with comments that will make it the best it can be. So. But in that way, I want to talk about, and we can talk about with our first books or seconds or with Carolina or whomever, the submission process to publishing, because I think it's called submission and it's not something that a lot of authors will talk about. There's a lot of secrecy and kind of taboo to talk about it sometimes. So let's talk about it a little bit here to shed some light on that for our guests, viewers,
watchers,
friends. people.
Our friends.
Right. So I guess I'll just start and say that, like, when you have your book and you've worked on it with your agent and your agent, and you have kind of decided, the agent specifically has that expertise, and they'll say, I think this book is ready to pitch it, to submit it to editors. They're going to come up with a list of, agents are different. Some agents will say 5 editors, some will say more. Some might just have an exclusive submission to one editor. And they'll say, they look them up, kind of like you researched and did your homework on agents. They'll have looked up the editors of the publishing houses, and this editor, you know, like our shared editor has her wish list that she really likes, right? So she really wants Latinx stories. She really wants, tell us, what do you want? Tell us in the here, let this be an advertisement for you. So people are going to pitch you. But, like, you know, I think she really likes Jane Eyre, right? Like, I feel like it's on her manuscript wish list, wanting to see something about Japanese internment. Because so, like, the editors, and then at the same time, they're going to be blown away from something that they didn't even expect, right? But, you know, some editors are going to want, like, I really like something that really focuses on friendship. Others are going to want mystery. Others are going to want love stories. And your agent's job is to find the editor based on their wish list that they kind of have sometimes publicly on a website, on their, you know, on their Twitter or whatever. But then also they'll look at the books that this editor has worked on in the past and see kind of like, what's the commonality here? Obviously all the books aren't going to be the same, but they're going to like, oh, this person really is drawn to character-driven stories. This person is really drawn to, you know, issue-driven stories, or fun best friend novels, or whatever. And then they're going to pitch the book to these editors. Well, they're going to call the editor, email the editor, and ask, hey, are you interested in seeing this? They'll kind of give the spiel. The editor will say yes or no.
They go to, like, lunches. I feel like it's called.
Yeah, they do lunches, and not everybody. And, you know, maybe COVID will change this where it will be more accessible. Not all publishing will be in New York, but a lot of publishing is in New York, and they'll go to lunches, and they'll, you know, sometimes I think they meet over like drinks and stuff. It sounds very glamorous, right?
Yeah.
And they'll talk, they'll build relationships. Your agent's job is to build relationships with these editors so that they kind of get a feel for their taste, so that if Sarah or Linda pitches an editor, that editor is going to be like, oh, you know what? She's been sending me some good stuff. She knows what I like. Yeah, I'm interested in this. Send it, right? So this publishing is just like I was saying, build relationships. It's so important. Don't be a jerk.
Don't be a
the people are going to be like, who is Nikki been talking to that she has to say don't be a jerk so many times? I'm just in a mood. It was Corgus. It was Corgus, my corgi, my dog, who was like ripping stuff up. I'm like, don't be a jerk, Corgus. This is coming for you. So do you have anything that you would like to add about like the submission process? Or
I mean, I feel like my submission process was very strange in the sense that one of my beta readers was my editor.
That is very strange. That's awesome.
Ashley Hearn was working at Page Street Publishing, which is my publisher. But before they, I believe, when they were like still early on, they were my beta reader. And I was like, oh, great. Because they used to like do sports broadcasting. And it was just like, okay, my book is about sports in a way and dragons. And Ashley was like super vocal about wanting to read it. So I was like, here you go. And Ashley's response was so enthusiastic. And I was like, okay, great. And she was like, they were like, oh, yes, you need to like send this to me once it's ready, like to Page Street, once it's ready. And I believe Ashley even like went up to Linda at a conference. And like together they were like talking about BLAZEWRATH. And
so people are beating down your door literally to get your work. You're like just trying to disprove everything I said. Okay.
No,
Amparo is awesome for the rest of us plebeians. Once you read her books, you'll understand. But like for the rest of us, this is
no, because like actually I spent 10 months on submission. Everyone else that we submitted to, because Ashley was the last person that we submitted to. And like everyone else was loving it or liking it and seeing promise in it, but they were rejecting it because they were like, oh, this is not gonna, like acquisitions will not go well, in the sense that, you know, marketing might have a problem with shelving it or placing it somewhere. And And they were like, this isn't original enough. Some people said this isn't original enough, or other people would like, this is too convoluted. The magic system is too much.
You could get a rejection one day that says it doesn't have enough of X, and that's why they don't want it. And then the next day you'll get it has too much of X, and that's why they don't want it. It is very subjective.
It is quite subjective, and it takes getting used to. But you should always expect it. Nowadays, it's like I have been on submission for other projects, and I understand. Actually, just one project, I believe. Yeah, prior to this, or not prior. I keep saying prior incorrectly. After this, yes, I was on sub, and it was the same thing. It was like, we love it, but not so much. So it's going to happen.
It happens totally different with every book. Like I talked about my first book not selling, and then the second one took forever, but I'm so happy that, you know, it found the right home. And then, you know, my next one that's coming out with HarperCollins, that was a much shorter process, I think, before we heard from my wonderful, fantastic, amazing editor who I love so much. We love so much before we heard from her. I think she had only had it. I think she'd had it for a few weeks or like a month before we were going to have a phone call. So, you know, it just very much depends. It depends. Did I say depends? Depends on like, you know, so many factors, right? And that's just the business. But I think to kind of to the point of how do we work with editors and readers to polish our manuscript, I think it's important to note kind of that like you aren't done even after a critique partner. You're not done even after an agent. You're not done even after an editor buys your book. They're going to have their own vision, and that's not only okay, that's important, that's great, that's why they're hired, that's their job, and it's our job to accept, to open our hearts and our minds to take notes. And sometimes, like in my case, whenever I get notes, a lot of the time I have to sit back for a couple of days because I'm like, ooh, it feels like a lot. It feels like a lot at first, and then like, yeah, and then I'm just like, you know. Oh, how could they say this to me? And then within like a couple hours or a couple days, I'm usually like, yeah, that is solid. Fair point. Yes. And I'm always happy I take the advice. And you know what? So remember that like they know what they're doing, and try to find if they have a specific suggestion that doesn't necessarily work for you, make sure you have a reason, right? Like it's okay to disagree with your agent or your editor. But like, you don't want to disagree about everything because like your job is the writer, their job is the editor. Like you do you, they can do them. But like, it's your book too. So like, if something really matters to you, like, yeah, say, hey, well, I hear what you're saying. Is there a different way we can solve this problem that we have? Because this is really matters to me. And because, so just like being able to, you know, this is a business, right? It's not just our art, it's a business, and like have a reason. Everything that we write, there has to be a reason for it in the story. And when you get editorial letters from an agent or an editor, just know that they're trying to make your book sellable. They love it. That's why they put all this time and energy in it. They have the same goals as you do. So we have to work together, and you have to have an open mind to it. Yeah. We're running out of time. So I want to, Amparo, sorry, I don't want to like cut you off, but unless you have anything to add, I wonder like if anyone has any questions. I do want to say that if you don't want to put any questions in here when we run out of time, that please find me on social media.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that.
Yeah. Nikki,
what are your Twitter handles, Instagram handles?
Twitter, you can find me Nikki Gray, GREY _. You got to put the underscore. Instagram. And my Facebook author page are both in my name, Nikki Barthelmess. My website is nikkibarthelmess.com. Amparo and I are both, and then I want to hear from you. Don't let me talk over you. We're both Las Musas, and we're doing this is what I was doing product placement for.
Yay! Yes. I'm really excited about the festival.
So I'm going to be moderating a panel about mixed race identity, because I am biracial and I write about it in some of my work, in my Everything Within and In Between 2021 HarperCollins. Carolina, you might have heard of her. She's really awesome.
Yay!
If anyone can understand any of that. But I'm moderating a panel on mixed race identity featuring some fantastic authors, including Autumn Krause, you may have heard of.
Yay! Oh, I'm so excited.
Engel and Tori Maldonado. So please join us for that free panel. You can find out on bookfestival.com. Amparo, please tell us about where we can find you and anything you want to share about upcoming events.
Yes, Twitter and Instagram both are the same handle. So it's at Amparo_Ortiz. My website is amparoortiz.com, super easy. And I am also moderating a panel. I believe it's December 4th at 12 p.m. Eastern. And that one is going to be contemporary fantasy, but with a specific focus on immigration. And this Friday, I have my final event for the month, or actually my penultimate event, promoting BLAZEWRATH Games, which is going to be on my channel, which you can find Amparo Ortiz, that's the name of the channel on YouTube. And I will be talking to Aiden Thomas, New York Times bestselling author of Cemetery Boys, and we will be in costume celebrating Halloween and Latinx magic in general. So if you would like to see me completely ridicule myself and become a meme probably, then you can just tune in on Friday.
I just realized I didn't put the time for my panel, so I'm going to do that really quick. December 5th, 11 to 11:50 Eastern Standard Time. But everybody go to Amparo's. I want to see it because
oh my God. Well, you were amazing too. This has been such a lovely, lovely time.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you for joining us.
Yes,
We
so
loved having you. Thank you for your participation in the chat. Please find us on social media, find us on our website, and good luck. Happy writing.
Happy writing, guys. Have a great one.
Bye.
Bye.